We live in horrible times. For many years now, the international legal order has been under massive pressure and perhaps is even on the verge of collapse. The United Nations, the very backbone of the post-Second World War order, is ostensibly losing its influence in matters of peace and security, ensuring which was the very reason of its establishment. The International Criminal Court, operational now for over 20 years, is facing extraordinary pressure due to sanctions imposed against its judges, staff, and possibly the institution itself for doing nothing else but following the mission of the Rome Statute. Yet, we are here. We are here today solemnly remembering the Nuremberg trial, the first international trial in human history that started in this very room on the 20th of November, 1945, 80 years ago. We are here because we believe that what was started 80 years ago was the right and honorable thing to do. It was a milestone for the establishment of a reliable, value-based international order. Humanity is always longing for justice. It did so 80 years ago, and it does the same today. We have assembled in Nuremberg to commemorate the past, to analyze the current situation, and to strengthen our faith in the future of human rights, international peace and security, and accountability. Accountability for mass atrocities being committed in many places of the world. We have assembled to call for nothing less than a revival of the Nuremberg principles, indeed, for a new Nuremberg moment that we desperately need in the very near future. Let me emphasize here that when we call for a new Nuremberg, we do not refer to arcane notions of procedure or substance, but to an ethos that came to symbolize the triumph of reason, the triumph of the law over raw power. Now, when the fog of the battlefield vanishes and the wiring of the drone silences, we need to be firm in demanding the reinvention of an international legal order that is capable of securing peace and human rights. We need a Nuremberg moment to prove that law is not so laggard as to be utterly helpless to deal with crimes of this magnitude by criminals of this order of importance. We owe this to these men and women who stood in this courtroom 80 years ago, and to the millions of victims of unrestrained power fantasies. My name is Christoph Safferling. I'm the director of the International Nuremberg Principles Academy that has invited you to take part in this conference, Strengthening International Criminal Law 80 years since Nuremberg. A heartfelt welcome to all of you who have followed our invitation in person in this room or online all over the world. I'm very touched by the fact that so many persons, and indeed so many high-ranking persons, have accepted our invitation as speakers and as participants. So I cannot for sure mention everyone by name, but my welcome in particular goes out to Markus König, the Lord Mayor of the city of Nuremberg, the President of the Upper Regional Court of Nuremberg and the landlord of this impressive Palace of Justice, Dr. Thomas Dickert, Tania von Uslar-Gleichen, Legal Advisor, Director General for Legal Affairs in the Federal Foreign Office of Germany. These three represent the founders of the International Nuremberg Principles Academy. I also welcome the former ICC and former ASP President Silvia Fernández de Gurmendi, who is also the President of the Advisory Council of this Academy, And with her, I greet all the esteemed members of the Advisory Council. I welcome the Under-Secretary for Legal Affairs of the United Nations, Elinor Hammarskjöld. I also greet so many representatives of international courts, like the President of the International Residual Mechanism, Graciela Gatti-Santana. I greet the President of the Assembly of State Parties of the ICC, Pevi Kaukaranta, the ICC Registrar, Osvaldo Zavala-Giler, the Deputy Registrar of the Special Criminal Court in the Central African Republic, Usman Bikam, and as a representative of European courts, I greet Judge Mikola Knakowski. The Federal German Judiciary is also represented by Judge Ute Hohoff from the High Court of Justice in Karlsruhe, and the Bavarian justice system and judiciary is represented by so many of our dear esteemed colleagues from across the bridge. And let me mention here President Matthias Burkhardt, President of the Regional Court in Bayreuth. I'm also very impressed that so many diplomats from general consulates and diplomatic missions have found their way here to Nuremberg today. There are 11 countries represented, and I mentioned them in alphabetical order: Canada, Colombia, France, Ireland, Liechtenstein, the Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Slovenia, Sweden, and Ukraine. I also welcome the presidents of our dear partner institutions, the Syracuse Institute and the Yasser Institute. And I welcome so many renowned academic colleagues from universities all over the world, and in particular the Dean of my law school, Michael Fischer, the law school at the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg. And a warm welcome to all of you, dear friends and colleagues, here in the room and again online. We are opening now the Nuremberg Forum 2025, Strengthening International Criminal Law 80 years since Nuremberg. And I wish us all fruitful discussions, interesting conversations, and above all, mutual encouragement and strengthening of our common belief in a value-based international order. Welcome to Nuremberg. It is with great thankfulness for the support and the appreciation of the work of the Academy by our founders, the Federal Republic of Germany, the Free State of Bavaria, and the city of Nuremberg. And they expressed this appreciation by welcome remarks by representatives of these three institutions. So I may ask first the representative of the Bavarian state, the Bavarian judiciary, and the landlord, Dr. Thomas Dickert, president of the court, for his welcome remark. Thank you.
President Fernández di Gurmendi, Lord Mayor König, Legal Advisor von Uslar-Gleichen, Director Safferling, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. 8 decades ago, when deliberating on the location of the International Military Tribunal, some debate arose among the Allied powers over the appropriate location for the tribunal. Many, most prominently the Soviet leaders, would have preferred to hold the trial in Berlin, the former capital of Nazi Germany. Other voices, mostly from the United States of America, favored Nuremberg to reclaim the city of the Reichsparteitage and of the Nuremberg race laws. Eventually, American insistence on conducting the trial in Nuremberg, located within the American zone of occupation, prevailed. It was the International Military Tribunal's trial of the major war criminals and the 12 subsequent Nuremberg trials against those most responsible for the horrendous crimes during the so-called Third Reich that has transformed the reputation of Nuremberg into that of a city of peace and of human rights. It is, we must however admit, a rather unexpected legacy. The location to hold the trial against the major war criminals on the Second World War was chosen not only for symbolic reasons, but it was also for pragmatic reasons. Its location within the American-occupied part of Germany allowed US forces to provide security for the conduct of the trial. This building, this Palace of Justice, was left almost undamaged by the war. The prison facilities just behind the building were in good condition and big enough to hold the suspects as well as some of the witnesses. The close proximity of prison cells and courtroom also facilitated their secure transfer to the trial sessions. The spacious building of the Palace of Justice offered enough space that was needed to prepare for the trial. And lastly, this historic courtroom 600 was the biggest one in Bavaria, and it was possible to expand it further through reconstruction. All of that made it possible to conduct the trials that have attracted great public interest. Following the trials, the interest of the German public soon faded. The historical significance of this building as well as this courtroom was also neglected by the leadership of this court for many decades. Soon after the end of the American occupation, when the Palace of Justice was returned to the Bavarian judiciary, Courtroom 600 was reconstructed into its original condition. For the subsequent decades, it was again used as an ordinary courtroom. But during this time, many within the Bavarian judiciary became aware of this historical significance and endeavored to deal with its past in an appropriate manner. Whenever possible, they opened the doors to interested groups of visitors from all over the world, and they provided a place for dialogue. In response to the consistently strong public interest, the Free State of Bavaria decided to dedicate the East Wing of the Palace of Justice to preserving the memories of the horrendous Nazi crimes and of the Nuremberg trials. A new adjoining building was added to the West Wing of the courthouse to free up this part of the building, which today hosts the Memoriam Nuremberg Trials, a museum of the city of Nuremberg, and the International Nuremberg Principles Academy, your host to this assembly. We thus owe it to the public, including the victims, the survivors, and the contemporary witnesses, that this courtroom is today a site of remembrance and of learning. So I am glad that I can now give my warmest welcome to all of you here at this Nuremberg Forum 2025, both in person in this famous courtroom and also online. Today, the rules-based international order established after Nuremberg is facing significant contestation. It is therefore more important than ever before that we remember the lessons derived from the Nuremberg trial. For judges and for other professionals working in this Palace of Justice and in these historic halls, this place is an enduring place of learning. It is a testament to this reality that today Bavarian legal trainees take classes that reflect the National Socialist past and the appropriation of the judiciary by the Nazi Party. This helps to better understand the importance of democratic values and the advantages of the constitutional state in difficult times. It helps to strengthen the special responsibility of all lawyers for democracy and for the constitutional state. It is in this spirit of learning that I wish you all a successful conference with inspiring discussions and fruitful exchange of thought. Have a pleasant stay in Nuremberg, and I look forward to seeing you all tonight at the state reception that will be given by the Free State of Bavaria in the historic town hall of the city. Thank you very much.
I'm now asking the Lord Mayor of the city of Nuremberg, Markus König, for his welcome remarks. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in May of this year, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the end of the World War II. We all know the image from that historic day. Film reels of the crowds at Place de la Concorde in Paris, at Trafalgar Square in London, and especially the photographs taken on Fifth Avenue and in Times Square in New York on May 8, 1945. They show jubilation, joy and relief that in Europe the most destructive and deadliest war in human history, the Second World War, had finally come to an end. That war concluded with a complete military defeat and total collapse of the German Reich and its allies. Compare it to the aftermath of the First World War. This time territorial concessions, reparations, or peace treaties could not suffice. The way of dealing with a war of such unspeakable horror demanded far more. 80 years ago, images from Nuremberg went around the whole world too. Yet these images displayed something different. A courtroom, man in uniform of formal war, engaged in a remarkably objective and sober process of jurisdictions. Regarding its display and its appearances, it was no spectacular event. Just what was in that made this trial that sensational, that it became the most incidentally reported event of its time. New reels around the world, daily international newspapers reports, and radio broadcasts gave this trial unprecedented coverage. For the very reason that an immensely important and forward-looking message was sent from Nuremberg. That the millions of victims of the Second World War had not simply fallen victim to history. They were victims of crimes and of criminals. And those perpetrators were held accountable, and future perpetrators who may be responsible for similar crimes as well. As a result of the Nuremberg trials, a groundbreaking idea was born that can be unjust, that the means of waging them can be unjust, that state actions can be unjust, and that such injuries must be prosecuted and those responsible must be held accountable. The responsibility and the need for this was enjoined on the entire international community. This year, modern international criminal law marks its 80th anniversary, and we celebrate it here in Nuremberg at its place of birth. The jubilation captured in the images of May 1945 may also have been directed towards this extraordinary achievement of civilization. Today, As you, dear participants of the Nuremberg Forum 2025, gather here 80 years later to explore the conditions necessary to advance international criminal law, you also have to deal with an important legacy, a legacy that deserves to obtain a true and lasting effect. Thus, I wish you many fruitful discussions and great success over the next few days at the Nuremberg Forum 2025. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your coming here in Nuremberg.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And now, welcome remarks by Tania von Uslar-Gleichen, Legal Advisor, Director General of Legal Affairs in the Federal Foreign Office of Germany.
Lord Mayor König, President Dr. Dickert, UN Under-Secretary General Hammarskjöld, President of the Assembly of State Parties Kaukoranta, President of the Advisory Board Fernández de Gurmendi, Professor Safferling, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to welcome you today here at the historic venue of the Nuremberg trials for the opening of the 2025 Nuremberg Forum. 80 years ago, the post-war international order was formed, an order that ensured, by and large, peace and prosperity in Europe, in the Euro-Atlantic area and beyond. 80 years ago, in the wake of the Second World War, the idea of individual criminal responsibility was brought to fruition in Nuremberg at the trials. They included individual criminal responsibility, particularly for the planning and conducting of a war of aggression. Since 1945, over the course of these decades, we have slowly but steadily refined that international institutional system, remembering the horrors of the Second World War and the Nazi terror regime. We have pursued institutionalization and legalization. We did so to ensure the peaceful coexistence of states and individuals. After the fall of the Iron Curtain and in an era of optimism, states globally came together to finally create a permanent international criminal court. It was an embodiment of the Nuremberg principles, according to which any person who commits a crime under international law is liable for punishment. Now, 80 years after Nuremberg, the world and Europe stand again at an inflection point. Russia is waging a large-scale conventional war in Europe against Ukraine. The European continent beyond Ukraine is target of hybrid attacks. NATO, the EU, and all of us need to adapt to a new strategic environment. The security of Europe is once more at stake. At the same time, our international legal order is challenged like never before. Russia's war of aggression represents a fundamental violation of Article 2, Para 4 of the UN Charter, a violation that might yet go unpunished. Building on the principles of individual accountability for core international crimes, at least the Special Tribunal for the Crime of Aggression against Ukraine is being created under the auspices of the Council of Europe to hold the Russian leadership accountable. The international legal order is fragile if not defended, and I fear we might find ourselves in a situation where the most staunch supporters of the international order and its institutions fail their responsibility and their heritage. The International Criminal Court, the institution built on the legacy of the Nuremberg trials, was not only the last of the post-war institutions to see the light of day, it could also be the first to fall victim to the new geopolitical environment. The United States, 80 years ago, held the leaders of Nazi Germany responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Now, ICC member states widely fear that the institutional sanctions could be imposed by the United States against the International Criminal Court. This seems to be a real possibility. If the ICC should fall victim to institutional sanctions, other institutions could follow. As supporter of the international legal order, of international justice, and the International Criminal Court, we must not let this happen. We must advocate against sanctions and against the harm they could do to the institution of the ICC. We must also fight for the concept of an international legal order based on rules rather than on unbridled power. We must work closely together with partners in order to enhance the resilience of the ICC and the resilience of the international legal order as a whole. We must safeguard the principles and institutions we have built over the last 80 years for a new era, while adapting them to stand the test of time and ensuring their ability to deliver. This Courtroom 600 is the embodiment of an inflection point in history that happened 80 years ago. Let us make sure that at our current inflection point, we do not turn back the clock, but we ward off the dangers to the international legal order that lie ahead. The International Nuremberg Principles Academy and this Nuremberg Forum are a means to that end. Your participation here at the 2025 Nuremberg Forum sends a strong signal of support. Thank you to the team of the Academy, to Christoph Safferling and the Advisory Board, as well as to renowned experts assembled here today for your invaluable work and for your presence. I wish us all a productive and insightful forum. Thank you very much.
And now a final welcome remark. Silvia Fernández de Gurmendi, former ICC and ASP president and president of the Advisory Council of this Academy. Silvia.
Your Excellencies, President Thomas Dickert, Lord Mayor König, Ms. Tania von Uslar-Gleichen, Director Safferling, and distinguished members of the Foundation and Advisory Council of the Nuremberg Academy, distinguished speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen. As the President of the Advisory Council of the International Nuremberg Principles Academy, it is my distinct honor to warmly welcome each of you to the Nuremberg Forum 2025. The significance of our gathering is underscored by the history that surrounds us as we convene in this iconic courtroom, a setting that, in the aftermath of the Nuremberg trial, became the birthplace of a renewed international legal order. As already mentioned before me, today we find ourselves at a crucial juncture. The foundations of the international legal order established here are experiencing unprecedented and sustained challenges. 80 years since the trial commenced, our world is witnesses an era marked by severe violence and egregious violations of international humanitarian law and human rights. For the architects of the Nuremberg trial, this trial was never intended as a solitary milestone in history. They envisioned its precedent and legacy as dynamic, capable of adaptation, growth, and ongoing development. When the Nuremberg Principles were formulated, Hersch Lauterpacht observed that their importance had come to transcend the occasion which gave rise to them. In the face of shifting political landscapes, we cannot permit these circumstances to compromise or diminish the legacy of Nuremberg. 8 decades on, the core standards set forth at Nuremberg remain as relevant and compelling as ever. It is our collective responsibility to honor, uphold, and preserve this invaluable heritage. In these turbulent times, the mandate of the Nuremberg Academy to foster the development, universality, and enforcement of international criminal law has assumed even greater significance. Progress in advancing accountability for international crimes can only be realized through collaboration among affected communities, courts, states, the United Nations, civil society, academic institutions, students, and a host of other key stakeholders. The Academy initiatives, such as convening the Nuremberg Forum and bringing together law students and young practitioners from across the globe, ensure that Courtroom 600 and the Nuremberg legacy are not confined to historical reflection. Rather, these efforts play a crucial role in shaping the future of international criminal law, ensuring that the lessons of Nuremberg remain alive and influential. I'm especially appreciative that so many esteemed experts have accepted our invitation to participate as speakers and panelists. So many friends and colleagues that have devoted so much effort to prevent atrocities and to promote justice and the rule of law. I could not mention them all, but I would like to recognize in particular the presence of Under-Secretary General for Legal Affairs and Legal Counsel of the United Nations, Ms. Elinor Hammarskjöld, the President of the Assembly of State Parties of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, Ambassador Päivi Kaukoranta, the President of MICT, Graciela Gatti Santana, and the Registrar of the ICC, Mr. Osvaldo Zavala-Hiller. It is equally heartening to see a diverse assembly of participants joining us both in person and online from around the world. Thank you once again for being part of the Nuremberg Forum 2025. I look forward to your insights and contributions, and I wish you 3 days of candid, constructive, and meaningful discussions. Thank you very much.